You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And on today's episode, going to dive into a familiar subject, but taking a bit of a different angle. We're talking talent pool, both in the LBK and across the Big 12 Conference. We'll take a look at this as we're leaving now, spring camp, that in the distance, a season completed even further back than that, and some assessments of some of these guys as far as individuals on campus in Lubbock or elsewhere in the league across the nation, basically formed as we roll into 2025. Here's what is thought of this guy as a player on this level, in this regard, whatever. Whether it's NFL draft prospect or whatever is the chief objective. These are the types of analysts, and assessments that are being made following the season, following some camp and some rosters being put together. So I want to get into a couple of different things here because we definitely feel like, and you probably are aware of this as a Tech fan, you're in some uncharted waters as it relates to what seems like the level of talent that you've assembled for 2025. So I want to get to that coming up. Also want to get to how these things can really apparently be a great predictor of success whenever it comes to some results in years gone by. And that includes some elite company that you were keeping in this regard as we roll into the 2025 cycle. But Chris, you've mentioned it a couple of times before, some of these matchups you've pointed out. I know Utah was an example you gave not too long ago, but there's going to be some weekends where Tech is on the field this season, and there's a pretty healthy number of draftables, either on their sideline, I guess, or the other, whenever it comes to some prospects and some really talented guys, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a variety of places where you can look for, intel or draft grades, or, there's some people you trust more than others, or some outlets that you trust more than others. Who I trust is the folks that are drafting for these NFL teams and like Senior Bowl folks, because this is their business. This is what they do. They've been doing it for a long time. They're really good at it. Some are better at it than others. But when you take the collection of said thought, there are some lists that get kicked out that, because like, this is ultimately what we're going to go over here. You know how this is a list that's referenced, like when you're trying to see, okay, so Jacob Rodriguez, for example. So he wants to play in the NFL. So as he finishes up last year, they submit paperwork, and it goes to a variety of folks, and they basically look at what he is, what he isn't, whatever, and they give him a grade. They don't care if he's this or he's that. They're just gonna, like, here's what the consensus is, and if you're comfortable with that, come out. If you're uncomfortable with that, or you think you can improve upon it, go back to school, whatever. So that's kind of the gist of what we're looking at here is these draft grades from draft eligible players last year and now this year. Okay. So this list will get tweaked and all those things, but it is basically put together by NFL personnel and Senior Bowl officials. And it depends on who gets invited to the Senior Bowl, and all NFL teams have it, and all that. And so it's not like factual in that it doesn't mean that it will be 100% accurate, but it is a good indicator of what you're dealing with your football team. I think it's important to note that, and people may not believe this when I say it, but there's two teams in the country that have the most players on this list, and they each have 14 players listed, and it's Alabama and Texas Tech. I will offer.
I'm sorry. You said Alabama and Texas Tech.
Yeah, I will offer up the caveat in that I think Alabama has got some more quality here. There's some more higher range guys, like more upper end prospects. Because this is everything from you're a first rounder to you are a seventh rounder to you are a preferred free agent. It runs the gamut, but
Yep.
they are going to grade you. Like Jalen Conyers was on this list last year. CJ Baskerville was on this list last year. Caleb Rogers was on this list last year. Taj Brooks was on this list last year. And so, but yeah, this is a bit different if you got 14 listed. And we'll go over those 14. I'll tell you who's not listed, though, and there's reasons why. Howard Sampson is not on here. Bryce Pollock is not on here. Quentin Joyner is not on here. They weren't eligible to be on here. First thing. These were you got to be a junior or older to be eligible for a list like this in 99.9% of the case of doing this. And so they're not, and yet those three could theoretically be some of your best players, especially when you're talking about what the NFL thinks and all those things. So I want to make sure that we throw that out there too. And there may be some others that I'm missing too, but those are the three that stick out that aren't even on this bad boy that could theoretically, be heavily in the mix. And if they come back to school next year, they certainly will be. But if they have a really good year this year, maybe not. But how do you want to do this? Do you want me
I want to ask you, because I was hoping I understood this correctly, but didn't you tell me that, we were talking about a certain threshold when being on this list when it comes to number of players for a team, and you said so many out of so many were in the playoff last year, I think, that were representing the top? Yeah.
So, and there's going to be somebody who goes, I would just be our luck that we'll be the first one to break this streak or, whatever. But, last year, there was 3 teams that had around, I think, 14 or 15 members of this list. And again, some of this is a bit different because some of this is like there's higher quality than others. I mean, you're going to have more of the late round, picks than some of these others, but it doesn't change the list. Again, the people putting it together, they don't care. They don't care where you play, what league you're in, whatever. That's not their job. Their job is to grade players, and this is what they've done, and this is what it spits out. But last year, I think it was Ohio State, Oregon, and Notre Dame all tied for the most entries on this list. All 3 went to the playoffs. So make of that what you will. So anyway, I just
that to be exciting that Texas Tech will be in a similar sphere, and let's go.
It doesn't suck.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, and this is the kind of thing that when you think about your team coming up in the fall, like you're not going to suck. I mean, you're just not. It may not be everything that you wanted, and you may fall short, but you're not going to suck. But I think it's a clear indicator. Like Arizona State has 4 players on this list. Kansas State has 5 players on this list. TCU has 6 players on this list. Baylor has 6 players on this list. Colorado has 1. Baylor has 5. UCF has 2. Houston has 1. Iowa State has 4. Again, on and on.
Yeah.
I think Utah has 6 players, 4 of which are on the offensive line. So, Calvin, when I tell you, and I think you've got 4 on the list on the defensive line. So when I tell you that when you're playing up in Salt Lake City and Utah has the ball and their offensive line is going against your defensive line, I think that every West Coast NFL scout will be at Bryce Eccles Stadium going, this is what I came for. This is what I want to see. Who's winning that matchup? Who's winning this one? This is the film that some of these kids will be evaluated on. And I think that's wildly fascinating. And I think that like this position group matchup will be one of the best in the conference for certain. And maybe one of the best like mano-a-mano ones in the entire country when you're talking about draftable prospects and things like that going against each other. So I'm just throwing that out there is that I think that because I think Utah is going to have. They're probably not as good as Notre Dame's, but that's a top 5 national offensive line. I mean, both of their tackles could be potential first rounders. Certainly one of them is the left tackle. But anyway, it just gives you a good indication of what we're dealing with here.
All right, we got to get off of that matchup because I'm at to simmer down. I'm getting too anxious, and we still got some time until that one is going to arrive. But it's going to be a great Saturday whenever that one does arrive. Could you run down from the Tech perspective some of the Red Raiders that maybe stand out to you or more interesting than others? First, today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and our code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for half off your first year. Could you run down from the Tech perspective some of the Red Raiders that maybe stand out to you or more interesting than others?
Yeah, and again, remember, no Joyner, no Sampson, and no Pollock. Okay, so they're not. They were sophomores last year. Okay, but David Bailey, Terrence Carter. But basically, you've got both your tight ends are on this deal. All 4 of the newcomers on the defensive line are on this deal. I mean, that's essentially half the list right there. And both of your starting wideouts are on this list, Virgil and Douglas. So you should have quite the pass catching again. And there's some questions here because do you have depth? Can they stay healthy? Can they actually do it? Can they embrace the role? Again, these names on these papers and listed wherever doesn't get you anything. Skylar Gill Howard, Lee Hunter, David Bailey, Romello Height, Terrence Carter, John Carlos Miller is what we've talked about. Reggie Virgil. And Caleb Douglas. Baron Morton is on this list as and the way they grade this thing is that they basically give you a median consensus. Like here's kind of the range. And if you go to the combine, for example, and you test well, you have great interviews, you're healthy, there's no medicals that check out. You don't have a bad habit off the field, like, smoking this or talking to girls like that or whatever it may be. You can improve upon this median consensus if you show up to the combine and your hip is busted and you've got everybody says, yeah, he's got some bad habits off the field. And you played poorly, this last year, whatever. It can drop, but but Barron is thought to be like a kind of a 5th, 6th rounder right now. So doesn't mean that's what he'll get picked. And again, you can improve on it or hurt it or whatever. So I'm just, again, trying to throw that out there to you. Dante Balfour, one of your DBs that is in line to, and it's a big kid too, man. You talk about measurables. I mean, this is one that when you see him, you're going to be like, he plays for us, and you're going to be glad that he does. Mentioned in the other, so Jacob Rodriguez, Reggie Virgil, Cole Wisniewski, again, one of those guys that I just don't think that everybody has kind of grasped exactly what you've got here. This is a 6'4", 220-pound safety that is a ball hawk that will take your head off, that has the IQ and all the stuff. Okay, Hunter Zambrano is on this list. And when you see kind of some depth chart talk in recent weeks, and he missed the spring and now he's inserted in at right tackle. Again, he had a draft grade last year and missed most of last year because of an injury and all that. But AJ McCarty is another one. And AJ McCarty may not even be slated to start. So this is why I say, man, and Balfour may not even be necessarily slated to start. This is what I'm talking about when you talk about special teams, depth, protected from injury problems, mitigating risk. I mean, all these things mean, if you've got NFL type dudes that aren't even like locked in as a starter and they're depth pieces or they're potential starters or whatever, it should just scream, whoo, yeah. I mean, so 14 of them listed, 14, and I think we went over everybody's, but yeah, and everything, and like, so I'm clear. Bailey is thought to be the highest, and I don't think that would shock anybody. And you've got several of these guys that are, again, a lot of these players are late, 5th, 6th, 7th type guys. Again, doesn't matter. I think I have to go back to 2009, and this was the actual draft. But 2009, in the spring of 2009, you were coming off the 2008 season, and you had one of the best teams ever in your program's history. Crabtree was a first rounder. Darcel was a second rounder. You had a third round pick. Name escapes me. Brandon Williams was a fourth rounder. Anyway, you had a player picked in the first, second, third, fourth round. So you had 4 players picked. That's about as good as you're going to find from a draft in really in the last 20-ish years for Texas Tech. And so if you even get and again, some years will fall differently than others when it actually comes down to the draft. Does everybody go to the combine and improve upon it? Does everybody have a good year? Does everybody healthy? I mean, there's so many different things. But as we sit here and talk in mid part of the summer, it's pretty fun to think about and look at and give you some context of kind of what they've collected here with their portal class and with the team that they'll trot out there this year.
Yeah, and I was curious to hear about, historically where you felt like this stacked up for Tech. I mean, you've been observing talent levels via recruiting or whatever it might be for a long, long time. And uncharted waters, already said that. And that may be an understatement. I don't know. It's not like you're just finding a new ocean. You may have found a new planet because the collection here is just doesn't sound like it's comparable. If you go back to the draft that you were just describing there a couple of decades ago, this one could expand on that by a good bit. It sounds like, of course, got to go make it all happen. And I am by far more interested in how many wins that can add up to for the team that they're a part of. I'm a Red Raider fan, not an NFL draft fan, but we like to see them get their name called. So I'm all right with that as well, Chris, but kind of seeing who can come together and play what role, because, the thing that I guess we continue to come back to this offseason, and a question that will continue to be asked is, do you have too many chefs and not enough cooks, or how many guys can find a role that they're really going to be able to excel in? Because it can't all be hero ball. I know that's more of a basketball kind of thought, but do your job, those types of things. Allow your teammate to do his job, those types of things. Going to be things that are repeated, I'm sure, as we get closer and closer to this season. But I suppose there's not a comparison for what you've got as far as a talent level assembled on paper.
And it was Louis Vasquez. He would kill me if he knew that I've forgotten his name back in 2009. So yeah, third rounder, large man, played as a freshman. Yeah. So sorry.
Yeah, not one you want to forget.
No. He's a quiet assassin. No, but this is, and when you glance out a bit and you because Howard Sampson is a NFL offensive lineman. Man, that's just what's going to happen here. I just don't know when that will be. I'm not. I mean, others are. I just feel like we need to see a bit more. But Quentin Joyner, I mean, a lot of people feel like this is an NFL back because of speed and all the things. And I think I want to make sure that people understand this. Prior to David Bailey joining this team, when NFL folks came through campus and they looked at the team and everything, the general consensus, mostly overwhelmingly so, that's your best pro prospect. And they were pointing at one of your corners named Bryce Pollock. So, and he's not even factored into this deal, which these things suck in some ways, because it's like, damn, you mean he might leave? Well, yeah, maybe. You mean Howard Sampson might leave? Yeah, maybe. I mean, so this is the game you're playing. So that's why you've rolled the dice and you're trying to acquire. Kirby Hocutt has said it repeatedly. We view as a department that this era is about talent acquisition. You can get caught up in the house settlement or NIL or all the things and rules and all this stuff. At the end of the day, this has become clear. This is a talent acquisition business. And I think they try to attack it in that very way. And they've done it.
Yeah, no question. They've been able to assemble it. Again, getting it all to come together to add up to wins in a successful season remains to be seen. Exciting to think about, to say the least. And, yeah, if you're getting opportunities early, it's probably because you had a great year, and I'm fine with that also. So maybe we'll be able to reload on the other side if we do have to cross that bridge sooner rather than later. Chris, appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed that look, and definitely names to keep in mind and ones I'm sure we will be continuing to discuss as we build up to the 2025 season. We'll see you for the next one, man. Looking forward to it.
Guns are up, and so is the talent here in the 806. So, yeah, we'll talk to everybody next time. These are fun. These are real lists. These are fun lists to talk about in the summertime, because this is unbiased expertise, basically saying, yeah. So.
Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate the everydayers for always being out there. And, of course, hit the show notes and find a link to the Matador Mob. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. You can try on a free 14-day trial and see how it suits you. Find the link there in our show notes. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks, as always, for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.